Hello, friends. This is not a topic most of us want to think about on an ordinary Tuesday morning, and I completely understand that. But there is a very practical reason to talk about it, and that reason is not to make anyone feel anxious or uncomfortable. The reason is simple. The people who plan ahead, the people who spend just a little time on a calm afternoon learning how this system works, are often the people who protect themselves and their families from unnecessary stress and costly mistakes during one of life's most difficult moments. And that preparation matters because the funeral industry in the United States continues to evolve. Consumer advocates, federal regulators, and industry groups have all been discussing updates to long-standing protections, new technologies, changing burial preferences, and concerns about practices that can leave families paying more than they expected. Today, we're going to go through these issues calmly, practically, and without pressure, so that when the time comes, you and your loved ones are informed enough to make decisions that serve your family's needs, not decisions made in the middle of grief, confusion, or urgency. We'll talk about consumer protections, common pricing practices, options that many families may not realize are available, and ways to avoid paying for products or services you may not actually need. The goal here is not to criticize an entire industry. Most funeral professionals work hard to help families through difficult times. But like any major industry, this one is easier to navigate when you understand your rights and know what questions to ask. A little preparation today can save your family stress, confusion, and potentially thousands of dollars in unnecessary expenses tomorrow. Before we get started, please subscribe and turn on the notification bell. I cover practical information like this, changes that affect your money, your rights, and your family's financial well-being, so you can make informed decisions with confidence. In major metropolitan areas such as New York, Los Angeles, San Francisco, and Chicago, a traditional full-service funeral can cost well into the 5 figures, depending on the services selected and local market conditions. By contrast, direct cremation, where there is no viewing, embalming, or formal ceremony at the funeral home, is often considerably less expensive. Families receive the cremated remains and can choose to hold a memorial service later on their own schedule and in a setting that is personally meaningful. For many families, that flexibility allows loved ones to gather after the initial shock of loss has passed, rather than feeling pressured to organize everything within a matter of days. Beyond traditional burial and cremation, newer forms of final disposition have become available in a growing number of states, and many Americans are still unfamiliar with them. One of these options is alkaline hydrolysis, sometimes called water cremation or aquamation. The process uses water, heat, and alkaline compounds to accelerate natural decomposition. Supporters point to its lower energy use and reduced environmental impact compared with conventional flame cremation. Availability varies by state, so families should verify whether the process is permitted where they live. Another option, known as natural organic reduction or human composting, has been legalized in several states in recent years. The process uses natural microbial activity to transform remains into soil over a period of several weeks. Some families choose this option because it aligns with their environmental values, although availability remains limited and regulations differ from state to state. Costs for these alternatives vary by provider and location, but they are often lower than those associated with a traditional burial. Now, I want to address an issue that affects millions of Americans who are thinking about end-of-life planning. Many people assume that funds and health savings accounts can be used for any expense related to death or funeral arrangements. Under current federal tax law, however, funeral and burial expenses are generally not considered qualified medical expenses, which means HSA funds cannot ordinarily be used for those costs without tax consequences. From time to time, lawmakers introduce proposals that would expand or modify the permitted uses of HSA funds. Anyone interested in these developments should monitor current legislation and consult a qualified financial or tax professional before making planning decisions based on proposals that have not yet become law. I also want every senior watching this to understand what pre-planning is and what it is not, because this is an area where consumers need to proceed carefully. Pre-planning simply means making decisions about funeral arrangements before they are needed. In some cases, that may involve prepaying for services. There are legitimate reasons many people choose to do this. It can reduce the burden on family members, document personal wishes, and provide peace of mind. But consumers should understand that rules governing prepaid funeral contracts vary significantly from state to state. Before paying in advance, it is important to ask where the money will be held, what protections apply, whether the agreement is transferable, and what happens if the funeral home changes ownership or ceases operations. Current consumer protections already provide important rights. Under the FTC funeral rule, consumers have the right to receive an itemized general price list and to obtain pricing information over the telephone without being required to provide personal information. Families are also free to purchase caskets and urns from third-party sellers, and funeral homes may not charge additional handling fees simply because those items were purchased elsewhere. For seniors who may eventually qualify for Medicaid, prepaid funeral arrangements can sometimes play a role in estate and asset planning. Because Medicaid rules differ by state, anyone considering this strategy should speak with an elder law attorney or another qualified professional who understands the laws in their state. The most important thing to remember is that no one should feel pressured into making expensive decisions during a period of grief. Taking time to understand your options, comparing prices among multiple providers, and documenting your wishes in advance can help protect both your finances and your family. The goal is not to create fear. It is simply to ensure that families have access to accurate information before they are asked to make important decisions under emotional circumstances.